welcome everybody. Really delighted to be here today, and thank you very much for taking the time to come and listen to us. You've just heard what we're going to talk about. We're going to broadly just cover a few subjects. First of all, a little bit about how to build personal credibility, how to inspire some of your teams, and of course, how to influence leaders, as we both do every day. But first of all, let's introduce ourselves. Ed, over to you.
Cool, thank you, David. So, good afternoon, everyone. So, my name's Ed Child, so I'm the head of consumer data and digital analytics at Costa Coffee. So, I've been at Costa Coffee for 3 years now. And so, hopefully, you all know Costa Coffee. So, 2,500 stores in the UK. We have about 13,000 express machines all around the UK too. We operate a FMCG and RTD business as well. And we're in about 35 countries globally. So, owned by Coca-Cola. And hopefully, you've all got the Costa Coffee app and you're huge Costa fans. And that's, thank you. And that's really, really important because that's the kind of lifeblood of like data which fuels everything that kind of we do. So my kind of background, I've been working in sort of retail largely, but also across financial services and e-com. And I've always sat in that CMO or Chief Customer Officer team. So it's a very business-facing role. So it's utilizing data tech and importantly AI and really integrating with the like CMO team to really drive kind of like value. So David, how about you?
Thank you very much, Ed. Well, yes, so I work in pizza. Papa John's is, I think, the third or fourth largest pizza chain in the world, so we're a great challenger brand. We have about 6,000 restaurants, largely in the US, but a big international division, which is where I work, across about 50 different markets around the world and growing every single year in that. So I sit in the technology team, looking after all consumer-facing technology. But interestingly, we do both the technology itself, but I also sit as a digital product leader as well. So it's a nice blend of both of those. My background is very mixed, actually. I've got some past experience with Starbucks, so also very familiar to coffee. A little bit of why we're good friends and talk a little bit about the old wars we used to have. But also I've worked in the NHS, interestingly. I was a sort of CMO equivalent for England's blood donation. So if any of you give blood, please keep giving blood. It's a great thing to do. And also long time I've worked at Virgin Atlantic, so another big brand, internationally as well, across things like sales, marketing, loyalty, and elements. So I have a very broad background, largely on the business side. But this role is more on the technology side. And I took this role in particular, and why I'm sitting up here today, because I can see my career split in two halves, really. I've got kind of what I've done in the last 15, 20 years, and I've got the next 20 years coming, and it's all going to be about AI, machine learning, generative AI. So I made a decision to kind of pivot my career to that, and we'll talk a little bit about that now. So I guess first subject is, how do you build credibility within an organization? Go for it, Ed.
Cool. So I think what I sort of spoke about before was sort of, and particularly when you're in any kind of data and analytics role, building kind of trust with your stakeholders is absolutely key. And AI is such a fast-moving sort of space that building your own personal brand and like credibility within your organization has been absolutely key. So in my responsibility, so I've sort of created a sort of AI steering committee within the CMO function at kind of Costa. So this is really looking at within the overall CMO area, which looks at brand, creative, digital, personalization, food and drink innovation. So this isn't looking at AI for the whole kind of business, but being really, really close to the kind of business. How can you really understand business problems and then look at the right capability to kind of do that? And for me, building credibility is key. And I think what both of us have like been on most recently is a journey of going, so much is happening within AI and you have to be kind of like curious. And part of it is sort of investing in like you. So I really encourage people to be super curious and build your own knowledge and capability. So I made quite a kind of big kind of step on this in the last 6 months, and I thought, right, how do I move forward professionally, but in this like really rapidly moving space, and did a ton of research, and like part of that was like looking around to like look at what courses and capabilities there. So, and this is what actually brought us to kind of meet. So I started a AI for Business diploma at Oxford Side Business School, and this is really about investing in like me for the long term to then go, how can I learn as much about AI to be that critical translator? So this isn't about being kind of tech-led. This is about AI strategy. It's about knowing your like onions in this space, but how do you build your own confidence and credibility levels in a kind of space which is rapidly changing? So that was my kind of big personal thing, but that's going to benefit Costa massively because we're like sort of building a really strong foundation. How about you, David?
Absolutely, very similar. I mean, you come from an analytics background, so machine learning is very natural in that. I had nothing to do with AI machine learning over a year ago. So I had a bit of a career gap between my last role and this one, and I thought what to do but go back to school. Great opportunity, you've got some time. So similarly, I went to Side Business School. I did a bit of a smaller course. There's a great 6-week executive learning course you can do. And again, just immersed me into that more formal learning of this new subject, excuse me. And that's where I kind of really just realized this is, as you learn, you see the hype, but you see very much the hype is becoming real. And I thought, what a best way to prepare myself for my future career and to do that. Now, many of you might not have either generous companies to pay for this or deep pockets yourselves. Lots of great free courses out there. I recommend, there's a really great one called Elements of AI. It's run by the University of Helsinki. It's free. I did it over a couple of days just to get a taster and went, I like this. It's kind of what for me, and that led me into investing in the next course. I'd also recommend keep up to speed what's going on. Really great examples just from the talk before around some of the startups that are out there. Sign up to some newsletters. Rundown AI is a really great one to sign up to. There's TLDR, I think, is another one that has a lot of tech news. I only keep it to about 2 or 3 a day that come through. I try and read them every day, but it really just helps you keep on top of some of the big moves and the big pieces. And that allows, typically in any organization, you're going to be the person who knows the most. And that's the great way that I'm starting to realize, totally accidentally, I'm Mr. AI now in my team and in my department without sort of really trying, but also with only a very little investment into some of that formal learning. And that's a great way to build that credibility, be the person that your execs might go to, but also you start to have people informally coming to you for questions. If a vendor's sort of trying to sell something to someone else, they'll come and bring you into that room as well. So great way to build credibility in that piece.
Yeah, and I'd say particularly if a translator. So if you are in like one of those kind of roles, because so much AI is technology led, which is great, but it isn't always there solving real world business problems. And I found that that's been really effective within Costa. Is I go in, we can actually be closer to this. We're closer to the kind of business. We're closer to the challenges in the sort of commercials, and then how can we look at what the kind of right tool is? And actually, AI isn't the answer to everything. I know that kind of shocks some people, but it's also knowing what AI is good for and when not to use AI, because I think both of us have got a lot of experience of pretty much every vendor comes to us with an AI-powered something or other, and it's then being able to know enough about this to cut through and go, is that what we really need? And actually, is that helping us solve kind of problems? So I'm a massive advocate for the curiosity and the self-learning piece. And I think what we've done within Costa is run a lot of internal things about lunch and learns, data science groups, sharing articles, getting people really engaged and interested, and particularly the ones who are curious, fuel that. It's really important because loads of people want to learn more. How can you feed them? And I think like kind of David was saying, you've kind of quickly built a reputation for being, you were really good on AI, and go, how do you just keep riding that one through?
Yeah, it's about motivating teams. I mean, everyone in this room is here for a reason. You're passionate about it. Certainly in the QSR sector and perhaps some others, there's a lot of people who actually aren't on this at all. They've maybe read, they might have, if you've been lucky, checked into ChatGPT and given me a recipe or show me what to do for a holiday. So what do you do to inspire teams and motivate people who otherwise wouldn't actually know this is happening?
Yeah, and I think that's about bringing it to life, because you can see loads of different applications, and I think you've got some great examples of kind of gaming and things like this where you sort of really make AI interactive and like fun, but also make it super relevant. So there's loads of interesting stuff about creative and branding and all like kinds of different opportunities with like generative, but actually who are your different audiences and how can you look at what are the right benefits for them? Because some things like content creation could be brilliant, but it might suit only a very small audience. So within kind of Costa, you could do some amazing stuff with AI and generative content, but that might only be of interest to a very, very, very small kind of group. So it's looking at some of the niche kind of uses, but also some of these broader kind of uses, which is more around efficiencies and how to use like prompting and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we like to think pizza is fun, and it's wonderful to work in an organization that's one of its primary behaviors is let's have fun, it's pizza. So for me, to taking that on and thinking around how do I motivate the technology department in a fun way, it was really around, I did two things similar to your lunch and learns. For our away days, I just made up two simple games. The first one I did was, I called it Pizza Tycoon, where we had a competition where basically I took people through three general public ChatGPTs. Obviously Perplexity as a research tool. We then used ChatGPT as a sort of thought synthesizing tool. And then I think Microsoft Copilot, which is our in-house AI tool, to generate some product ideas. And basically the competition was, be it Pizza Tycoon, come up with 3 new digital products, but you had to go and research the trends. You had to go and find out the products, and you had to pick one and turn it into an Instagram post. Nice and fun thing to do. The second game we created was a pizza artist. So you became a pizza artist for an hour. And again, individually, this was all on Teams in this case, a remote game. I got people to test bias, for example. How do you go into a simple image creator, type in your job role, see what it pops up as to what you should look like? Actually, I'm trying to which one. I think we used Copilot again. It was very good, very diverse in gender, ethnicity, but a nice way of introducing a simple kind of risk or a simple element of AI in a fun way in that perspective. So I think if you want to be that person, that champion of AI, think of some really fun ways that you can gently introduce people into something on a lunch and learn, in a team away day. And once you've sort of generated a template, I now share these templates. I've now done a sort of an hour with the marketing team. I'm going to do hours with others as you start to just build the excitement and people get to practice some of their prompting and just see the relevancy into their work. The second piece as well, I'd say, is like go and be that nosy busybody, to your point around like if you're known as the AI champion, you get licensed to go and have a chat to people about it. I had some really great recent conversations with our customer service team, answering lots of customer reviews, customer comments, helping them understand how to do sentiment analysis, how to report kind of the type of comments coming through, but also just empowering that leader to put it into a nice graph to go, rather than having 100 complaints, I can now tell you I've got 120 on this, 20 on this, really improving the productivity of that reporting. Or similar to what you were saying about go find the content creation team and help them in that respect. So that's motivating teams. How about actually influencing leaders?
Yeah, I think this bit's really important. So as much as it's kind of great to be cracking on with this, having kind of support from your leadership function is absolutely key. And, you know, every exec member knows something about AI. It's so media central within everybody's awareness. But your execs still don't really tend to like cut through it. But having them supporting you and sort of backing you on this is absolutely key. So I guess what's been key for like me is first of all helping educate them, because they want to be knowing and learning more, and they like want to have confidence that there's someone within their team who understands that their kind of business who can be driving this. And I think this is where it's really interesting looking at David's role being more technology oriented and mine being more kind of business facing, but you're like again close to the overall business, and you've like built this overall trust and credibility. And I think don't look for permission. Your kind of CMO or your CCO or your exec teams want you to be cracking on with this stuff. So I think what I found is like going, there's a lot of low risk and relatively low profile ways of actually cracking on and delivering value with kind of AI, rather than going, right, we're going to land an AI strategy that's going to require X million investment and have returns of kind of Y. Look at these kind of small wins, and most importantly, how can you align that to your business strategy? So there is so much focus on AI and technology, which is still technology-led. And this bit's absolutely key by going, you don't need an AI strategy, but how can your AI or your data and analytics fuel your business strategy? And it's a really important distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We have an advantage. Again, we've got a really engaged exec team who know they've got to start thinking around how to use this solution as an answer to their general business problems. We have what's called an AI Catalyst group at Papa John's. I'm on it as the international lead for it. And again, the solutions or the asks aren't coming down. It really is a bottom-up perspective. So I've been knitting together some of these case studies. We've been piloting certain tools. I'd say one of the biggest things we've been grappling with is the enterprise security that comes with a big organization like ours. I love trying to give airtime to some small startups. There's a really great one called Data GPT at the moment. Have a Google of it. It's fantastic. It adds a conversational bot on top of your reporting. Really simple, but really, really engaging. I love thinking about Gen AI as closing the gap between the end user and technology. And as an analyst, I always used to be an analyst in the old days. That's just such a great task to do. But it's an illustration here where I'm trying to pilot with this startup. But again, as a startup, they are developing their enterprise security tools. They initially didn't have an information security officer, all these great things which you need to have as engaging with a big company like ours. So really great there. It was around turning it around and saying, look, if you want to engage with us, you need these 3 things. Come back in 6 months. And they have. And now we're progressing it to the next level. So you, as that AI champion, take the business strategy, see how you can actually find and source some of the solutions for it and surface it to that element in that side. I'd say the second piece really is also, if you are sticking your nose into all these areas, you're going to be the person with the intelligence to inform your execs on the patterns that you're seeing. So what's really useful as that person with the credibility, you can start to present the patterns within the company back up to the executives and saying, look, I'm seeing lots of opportunity for this, this, this. And actually we can solve all these problems by one single piece, or I can segment it. I always like to think, because it's so complex, all the use cases, like you've heard so many over the last couple of days, I like to think it and keep it as simple 3 sort of areas. There's data analysis and decision-making tools, and that's obviously right into your area, Ed. But just like where I said, a conversational analyst. Then there's productivity tools where like content creation, or when you're using copilots to write emails or job descriptions on that side. And then the third bucket I think of is customer tools, like thinking about recommendation engines, thinking about customer service tools. And I just always have those 3 sections in my mind. And I've pretty much found there's not many use cases that sit outside those 3. So I can always present to the execs those 3 things. Which one am I talking about? Is it about solving the core back end? Is it about improving the front end? And I can leave it at those 3. So the more and more you dig into it, and the more you read, and the more you learn, you start to generate that very simple narrative and coaching. You can actually coach your leaders on where they need to be going. So, and if anything, it only takes a year, and you could be up here next year speaking like I am. So go for it.
Cool. So we're starting to the clock is ticking down, and I think I'm just going to share a couple of kind of like tips that I found over the last sort of year or so. So don't be prepared. Be prepared to kind of fail, because there's tons of like stuff here, but it's great to innovate. But do things at a lower scale and under the kind of like radar. But there's still so much you can learn. We did some really interesting stuff looking at our using large language models on our MPS data, but it wasn't really delivering any kind of value, but we learned loads internally, but we hadn't over kind of promised. And then last tip from me is just more about going, look at the broader, there's some like great kind of tools out there like AI readiness assessments, and these really help you look at not just just like tech, but building the right culture and the right buy-in, because these are absolutely key. AI is not about tech. It has to be multifaceted.
I'll finish with 2 tips as well, and perhaps a tip for if you're in the client side. Really go out there and meet the vendors who are bugging your inbox. I get so many. Usually you just put it into the bin, but actually I try and take the time and meet people. And what I learned to do is learn the questions that interrogates them about their solution. First of all, it allows you to quickly get rid of all the snake oil salesmen who don't know what they're selling you, or they've got a rules engine and they're calling it AI. But if you talk to lots of people, you start to see and can categorize some of the vendors you have yourself. So go out, explore it, be willing to chat, network. You meet great people doing that. So that's my tip for client side. For agency side, especially in the sales team, please learn your product. So many times I've said, can you tell me what large language model you're using? And they're like, yeah, we'll have to get our product team in. And I'm kind of like, come on, like this is quite basic stuff. Your clients will and should be asking you. So if you're sales side and the supply side, get to know some of the terminology that your product teams can teach you, can help coach you, because that's really, really important to building the credibility with enterprise organizations that are going to want to see it. But also there is the biggest risk, and the biggest thing that I lean on, the single thing that I took away from all my learning, is this concept of explainability. The thing about AI, it can be a big black box. And if you saw some of the examples previously, how on earth does it do that? But the more and more we all have a role, to Ed's point around translation, how we can translate between the business side and technology, but also how suppliers can translate to clients and backwards, then people can get more confidence and reassurance on these great products. And that, I think, is going to be absolutely key for the future.
Absolutely. So I think the themes there of transformation, curiosity really coming through. Unfortunately, we do not have time for questions, but Ed and David are super friendly. So come and grab them, ask them anything that you want to after the sessions or around the site as well. But can we please give them a big hand, and thank you so much.